Welcome to Legacy Makers, a conversation for dads. This is a space for building community and for honest conversations about fatherhood, the wins, the struggles, and the responsibility of building something that outlives us. Each episode, we sit down with leaders, dads, and friends to talk about family, fatherhood, and the kind of men our kids need us to be, because legacy isn't accidental, it's built.
We're talking about a roof now.
Time to put
Talking about putting a roof
cover the structure,
on a
baby.
house. We got to cover the structure. Okay, let's. So we've been talking. We've gone through this whole metaphor about building a house and what it looks like as dads. So we started with the foundation. We talked about framing. We talked about load-bearing walls, and now we're talking about this roof, which to me really signifies two things. One, just like this idea of what is under our roof is our responsibility. So it's our job to establish this roof. And I believe that a roof is a picture of protection, a provision. It's the covering over all of it. And I think as dads, we cannot overstate the responsibility that we have. Like, the roof is our responsibility. There's a lot of things that Laura does around the house that I don't do. But a few years ago, we had to have our roof replaced. And when we had to deal with the insurance contractors, all that kind of stuff, like, Laura didn't touch it. Like, that, the interior decoration that she may touch, but, like, the roof is the dad's responsibility. And I think may not be in your home, so that's fine. But in a very practical sense, dads have to do that. Can you give any example? I was trying to think of, like, growing up, is there specific stories or things where I saw, like, this protection really matter? Do you have any personal or, like, an example you've heard?
I think we'll unpack too, like, the idea. I agree. My mind goes to protection, providing when I think about the roof, but there's also an element of, like, structure and stability and the values of the, like, that get kind of poured in. And as I was thinking about this, it's a tough example because of our love for the Georgia Bulldogs and what this person meant to us.
Where are we going?
And took away from us. But listen, I think about, so I remember watching Jalen Hurts back in, I don't know, it was 2019, before COVID. Anyway, when we played
18, wasn't it?
18 national championship game,
Yeah,
in Georgia, Alabama, and completely dominated him in the first half. I mean, he was all season. He was their guy, right?
Yep.
And they benched him at halftime. Brought in a
bold move,
right? Brought in true freshman Tua, came back, delivered the gut punch, beat us in the national championship game. If you go watch interviews after, this is a kid who literally was the guy on the best football team all season, was benched in the biggest game.
Player on the best team.
Benched in the biggest moment.
Yeah.
He has a national championship ring, but you and I both know, like, he doesn't view that ring probably as, like, this is mine. He had someone else had to come save the day. And you watch him in that post game, and it was like, there was never... It was smiles. I'm so proud of this, of Tua. Like, and I'm like watching this kid, and I'm like, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Then the season ends, and he doesn't transfer. He comes back.
Yeah.
Tua starts all year. He's the backup now. He was going to be a first-round pick. He ended up being one, right? But he came back. And then what happened? Like, destiny again against the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC championship. Tua gets hurt, and Jalen comes in and beats us. And then he goes to Oklahoma, does his thing, almost wins the Heisman, or did win the Heisman. I think he was finalist for a Heisman, gets drafted, and just won a Super Bowl. And he talked about his dad. The reason, like, this, it all hit when I saw, like, him talk about his dad, who was his coach growing up, and said his dad instilled in him, we see things through and we don't cut corners. And that's a roof moment. That is a moment of, like, a dad instilling things over the family, and that kid leaning in and, like, this is what his dad gave him because of a strong roof over the top of them, of, like, all right, this is what I learned. And when these situations I'm faced with, like, I don't run. Like, when it gets scary, these are the things I do because the dad had that provision over him. That's just amazing to see.
Okay, I got to go find some of these interviews because I have not heard this before. I've seen a lot of good Jalen stuff, but that's fascinating. When you said this, like protection, and then also we don't cut corners. This is not a real dad example, but it makes me think of it. So Andrew Jones, center fielder for the Atlanta Braves, got in the Hall of Fame last year. So there's a lot of interviews about him now, and he talks about Bobby Cox as his head coach. And these two stories keep coming up over and over now. He says that Bobby Cox was like a second dad to him. And the two things I was about is how Bobby always protected his players. So that's the roof is the protection. But there's like this big moment where Andrew Jones, young, hotshot, kind of gave half effort, and Bobby goes and pulls him in the middle of a game. So it's also this lesson about how we do things. So the way that you talk about Jalen's biological dad providing this character building moment that has shaped him all throughout his life.
Totally.
I feel like that I'm hearing Andrew Jones talk about that. So there's something to dads being both the protector and the one that provides this this covering of like, here's what we do. This is what we're about as a family.
Yeah, and I think we have to be careful not to over-rotate towards like the more masculine protecting and physical, or like I'm the provider, like this is what because it's not just about that. It's also emotional, mental, relational, spiritual. The walls that we've talked about like in previous episodes, they hold the structure, but what ends up happening with the roof is it protects what's inside.
Yeah.
And it's so important for us as dads to not just be in this mindset of, okay, got it, I'm a protector. We got an alarm system. We got protection in the home. Like we're ready to go. I can physically protect the family. Like there's an emotional side of this that's also really, really important that I think most dads miss.
Yeah, it is far beyond a physical protection. But I would caution this. I think it has to start with some level of understanding that there are threats out there.
Absolutely.
Like the roof exists to protect, and it's not just physical threats. You're talking about there's emotional threats, there's spiritual threats. And if we don't have that understanding or awareness of threats, we're never going to. And I'm not talking about the paranoia, like prepper kind of stuff.
Right.
Like you're talking about physical threats, but we got to understand that there is a battle that's going on and that we've got to be able
Absolutely. So I've had a couple roofs replaced in a couple houses, right? They weren't because we had a big hole in the roof that we had to fix, right? But I knew in my gut they were getting to a point where if a big enough storm hit, there would be a problem.
Yeah.
It was an anticipation. So I think about like an old roof is like a passive dad. The passive dad is going to react instead of lead. In a roof situation, the reaction is, oh my gosh, a big storm came. Now there's a huge hole and we have weather and now all the things inside are being damaged. The leader going and doing it ahead of time, you're almost battening on the hatches a little bit, right? The passive dad hopes things turn out okay and assumes that just like, hey, me being here, me being aware is enough. Whereas the proactive dad's anticipating. The proactive dad initiates conversations, initiates hard conversations, initiates putting structure in place, and then sets direction for the home. And I think the tension that we want to be careful of on the roof is just because there's a roof, a figurative roof that you feel like you have covered your family with because you have a 529 and a 401k and you're got a security system in the house. There's tension between passive and proactive.
That's good.
And I think we need to really kind of break down what that feels like, what this means to have that both strength, but also making sure we're taking care of people, the emotion piece of it.
So when you talk about proactive, you share with me 4 things you think we do. Why don't we unpack those 4 things? Because I think I would view it this way: is like the when I got our new roof, the insurance company paid for it, most of it, which I was thankful for. But they came and they had an adjuster come out and do an assessment.
Yeah.
So maybe for dads right now, this is the assessment of your roof to figure out,
Yep.
do you need to be doing some things differently?
Yeah. I think there's 4 elements. Let's unpack them all. Of protection. The first one, as we think about this, is awareness.
Yeah.
So listen, well, we got to be plugged in. No different than saying, I am aware that roof is 27 years old and the next storm that comes is probably going to be a problem. We got to be aware of what is going on with our kids, what, to your point, pressures are out there that are what they are. Think about what are they think about what are some things we should be aware of? Like what are they consuming?
Yeah.
Screen time, friends, do you have them on the right ball teams or the right coaches, right? We will not be able to anticipate without awareness of what's going on.
So I like that word aware. That doesn't mean to live scared.
Nope.
To be aware. So this is a thing. Like you can over rotate here, but and you don't have to be anxious to be aware. Like you don't have to be fearful of all the things that are out there, but ignoring threats do not make them go away.
That's right.
And so I think it is really crucial as dads, we've got to be aware of what's out there, which means we got to be tuned in to what's going on in our kids' lives.
And it's external, but it's also like, don't miss what's right in front of you.
Yeah.
Like emotional shifts. Are they sleeping as much? Are they more snappy? Are they being disrespectful? Like, yeah, like sometimes kids have bad days, but are there patterns? Like if we're just not locked in of what's going on in the house, like you're going to miss some of those things. And then I would also say, like, don't underestimate awareness on how you are doing personally. Like, how are you mentally and your marriage? Like, but if we're not paying attention, like you can't protect what you're not paying attention to.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
that's the big thing. And so the first piece of protection as we think about the roof is an awareness of what is going on, being in tune.
I think that's good. It's that awareness moves from us being passive to proactive when we start to have that. Okay, so number 1 is awareness. Number 2?
Direction.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit when we did load-bearing walls, but I think this direction piece is key here because we will not drift into this.
Let's shift into like a world you and I are more comfortable talking about, just our professional lives.
Yeah.
You know, we both have been a part of teams. We both have had the privilege of leading teams and are leading teams. When you think about the culture that you have created at Addo, which has been recognized here in Atlanta as one of the best places to work, I think a few times, did you just open the doors and say like, hey, here's what you're doing. Here's your assignments. Like this is what you do. We're going to have some routines in play. Like culture doesn't just occur.
Yeah. It is deliberate. It's intentional. There's a clear direction.
Do you say it one time, like this is our culture, and you walk away?
No, you're right. I mean, you gotta, it's repetitive. It's also, a lot of times they think it's like the big things you do, but we talk about around here that culture isn't. It may be memorialized in the big moments, but it's created in the small ones, those everyday intentionality. Yep. So we got to have that as dads.
A culture's not going to, your family culture is not going to build itself. You have to cast vision. And again, we've talked about this in almost probably now 50 plus episodes, the importance of what do you want your family to stand for? Like if someone were to say the Scott family, looking from the outside, like what do you want to be known for? And you don't have to have this big, like eloquent, it could be a couple things, but like, what is that? And then make sure that there's experiences around that. You recognize behavior when you see that in your kids, right? Like we're trying to do a thing now where we talk about being, encouragement is a big one for our family. Like basically there's 3 pillars for us. It's we want to be encouragers, we're going to go the extra mile, and we want to be mat carriers. And these are biblical principles we put into place, and there's like a little bit of teaching behind each of them, but my kids know those 3 things. And
what are the 3 again?
So we want to be we want to go the extra mile.
Yep.
We want to be mat carriers, and we want to be encouragers.
Okay.
And so
it's good.
we talk on Sundays before we go to bed, like, tell me what of these 3 things, like, what did you do this week? Tell me a time that you were a mat carrier for a friend, right? Like, and they're articulating that back in their own way. That's how we do it. It's very simple, but simple is not always easy. We had to take some time and put that into place. But part of putting a roof over the head is like, what matters to your family? How do you treat other people? And then you prioritize around those things.
Okay, so the awareness, knowing potential threats, and we talk about externally and internally. Then direction. That's there's some clarity there of defining it. What do you say after that?
Emotional safety. So it's not just about the physical safety piece. We kind of talked a little bit about this is I think we're pretty good as dads, that masculine energy of like, I can protect my family, but like, do you have that same confidence as it relates to the emotional safety, the psychological safety of your family, the spiritual safety? Had a great leader speak at one of our Legacy Maker events, David Farmer, and he told a story about, listen, as dads, part of like how we see ourselves, how we grade ourselves is like, are we protecting and providing? And like, he told a story about getting cut off in traffic and this whole like tense moment. And then he had his kids in the car and it was this like big, like, okay, not for me, not going to do that to my family kind of deal. And he started to think back of like, how many dads are that bold and that focused on like the emotional safety and the spiritual safety of their families versus just, I can protect or I'm going to provide for them. And it was a huge gut check of like, all right, there's more to that than just what we believe the duties of being a dad are.
I think that's the key. So when you said psychological safety, there's a lot of workplace research around that concept. And from a workplace environment, it means like, do people feel comfortable having their opinions heard, being able to share who they are? So when you just shared that, the light bulb that came on for me is a lot of times dads want to protect their kids from external threats, but they may not have the emotional safety or support inside their house where that kid actually thinks the biggest threat may be the temper of the dad.
Absolutely.
The frustration that gets taken out on them. Something like so. What I thought is there are times we may be trying to protect them from an external threat, but what they really need is for us to provide an internal safety inside of our home that may not be physical. It may be emotional or spiritual.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel confident that your kids could come to you and share something that is maybe overly emotional, or share something maybe that
where they failed
or they messed
or
up because either they don't feel they're connected to you in a way to share the emotion, or they're concerned with your reaction.
Yeah.
Right. And that is man, that's a hard one. And if you feel tension in that spot, it's probably for good reason. And it could be as simple as just opening, hey, but if you ever need anything, or you know what I mean? Just like open the invitation to them. But that's that emotional side of this safety piece, protection piece, is a really big one.
Yeah. We got to give that it's really key for our kids, and they've got to see it modeled, even in our interactions with our spouses.
Absolutely.
So sometimes it's like we may do that for them, but are we modeling that in other areas?
Mm-hmm.
So awareness, direction, emotional safety.
And then I think it's kind of that moral, or, in my case, the spiritual guardrails too, that we put into place.
Yeah. That doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen by default. It's got to happen by design.
It has to happen by design. And for me, I didn't grow up in a family that went to church. So but that's very important to me. But I don't necessarily always feel like I have the answers. I don't necessarily always feel like I'm equipped. And a lot of that, it could be ego, it could be just discomfort. But like I've had to push through some of that as it relates to these types of conversations, because it's new for me. It's like it's new, but my fear continues to be in this space when I feel either too tired to go into this or I feel like I'm not equipped, the thing I tell myself is if I'm not shaping this, someone else is.
Yeah.
And I'm not comfortable with that. And that's that extra motivation to continue to have the right dialogue or to lean in or learn is like, I'm not comfortable with someone else shaping the moral and spiritual side of my children.
Yeah. Okay, I got a couple thoughts on that.
Yeah.
So one, I mean, we can physically protect our kids. We can emotionally protect them, is what we're talking about, this covering, financially. But the truth is, like, there has to be a spiritual level of this. And I think this has to go with both consistency and it has to move beyond surface level. So I actually think I do a really good job of this in the consistent, like before we eat, we pray. Before we go to bed, we pray. But I feel like sometimes that becomes more of a routine than it does. Like, am I specifically praying?
Mm-hmm.
Like not generic, but specific things. Am I, do they see me having that trust that I want them to have? Like, I think it's got to move beyond performance into something that is real and deeper that they can see.
Well, I think when we're talking about faith, but it could also just be their character. It could be, if that's, faith is not important to you or that's fine, but like maybe it's character traits you want them to have. At some point they have to be theirs. Right? So when I think about where we're shifting with a lot of our prayer life with the kids, is like, I want to hear them.
Yeah.
Versus me being the one to do it.
Yeah.
Like, as I talk about these things that I want to instill in my kids around being, empathetic or encouragers, like it's one thing for me to like drill it in, but I need it to be theirs as well. And that takes time. It's not just, okay, on this day we're flipping the switch, right? But if you're not careful, we could be too overbearing as we set these up. And then all the things we've instilled in our children are not theirs. And then they get to a point, at some point in their early adult life, they're like, I don't know what I am or who I am. It's not mine. And we have to be aware of that tension as well.
Yeah. Let's just dive into that for a second, because I saw somebody post the other day on this topic. They were basically saying, what were some ways that they want kids to make this their own faith? For me, when it comes to this protection and roof, what they need to see from me is a real, genuine love for them and desire for their well-being, instead of me just wanting them to check boxes or do what they think is right to do. Does that make sense at all?
Absolutely.
How do y'all balance? Because you got an older kid than we got.
But it's hard, and it's hard because when they're early in their lives, that's how you parent. Like you're it's more of a directive as you teach them, and then you start to explain, okay, why do we do these things? But at some point you have to be comfortable turning it over to them, and it's hard.
So I mean, I'm nodding and I'm like, yep, but no, I mean, yes, but that's turning it over is really tough.
Turning it over is tough, but again, back to like the first piece of like the awareness.
Yeah.
You have to be intentional and be aware as you start to do that, like as you see things, to then either reel them back in or have those conversations. Like, I'll tell you what, like some of the most powerful tactics as a parent is the art of storytelling.
Yeah.
Like, my kids repeat back certain stories that I've told them, whether they're biblical or they're stories of sports or they're stories of things that I went through as the teaching piece of this, right? But like, you have to figure out a way to connect with them where they are, but it's like, you got to give them a little bit of rope, to do their own thing, or else, again, you and I've seen this play out. People get to a certain part in life and they're just like, they go crazy. Like,
yeah. Let me give this an example from a Christian worldview, but somebody can take it and apply it in there. I've seen these statistics before that are a little bit for shock value, but they are sobering when it says like there is a like 0.25% chance that your child will play professional sports, but there's 100% chance they'll stand before God one day.
Mm-hmm.
You can take that from a faith perspective or not, but I think, are we prioritizing the things that are going to matter most when it comes to this what we're covering our family with?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, some of the sports things, there's a discipline, there's a teamwork, there's things that are going to pay off long term, but are we prioritizing the right things, not just performance?
Yeah.
So I think this is a good reminder. I know we always want to be encouraging to dads. I think this one, we do have to be challenging a little bit here, that the roof is your responsibility. That doesn't mean it's solely your responsibility, but this is something that if we don't provide, it's unlikely that it's going to be provided for them.
Yeah, I totally agree. And if it's convicting, it should be.
Yeah.
It should be, because again, we are, as both parents, it's not just a dad thing. We are responsible for protecting and caring and providing for our children, but also ensuring that as they set out to do the things that they are here to do, that they're equipped to do those things.
Yeah.
Because you and I've seen we talk about helicopter parenting. Like, I kind of had this thought in my mind, like, protection feels like control, but that's not the right way to frame this. Protection is not control. It's care in advance. Like, you're caring for them in advance. We heard David Salyers a couple sessions ago talk about the thought of legacy as this like initiating momentum.
Yeah.
For that next generation. And that's what this is about. It's putting a framework in place to care for them in advance and getting the momentum they need to go out and do the things they need to do.
Yeah, and I just leave us with this. I think, again, this is going to sound more spiritual in this episode, but I think there is something about praying for our kids, because when you talk about turning things, not just with them and teaching them, but praying for them, because when we pray for them, we understand that we are entrusting their care to somebody who we believe loves them more than we do, which is hard to believe. But I think that's really important.
Totally agree. Well, it's a good one, man. It's a convicting one. I look forward to unpacking it a little bit further here in the next episode.